Hi, everyone. This is Laura Columbus from Attune Yoga Wellness, and it is Wednesday. I was like, what day is it? It's Wednesday, December 12th, and somehow it's December 12th, and I'm not really sure how that happened. Maybe some of you are feeling the same way. We are literally revving up towards the end of the year, and it is coming pretty quickly. There's a lot of anxiety in the field. There's a lot of overwhelm. There's a lot of, juggling happening, too many things happening at once, and people feeling this sense of frenzy. If you are not feeling that, congratulations. You must be doing all of your self-care practices and taking really good care of yourself. The reality is, even if you are doing all your self-care practices and taking really good care of yourself, it doesn't mean that you're still not feeling that. This is a loaded time of year. This is a time when things come up, when memories get stirred, we get nostalgic. We are sometimes filled with a sense of, foreboding for the end of the year, and then also grief, because we're dealing with some, pain, whether it's physical, mental, or emotional pain. And we're going through this season where, everyone feels, is having this experience of joy, supposedly on the outside. And then really internally, what's actually happening. I led a women's circle this past weekend, and I came in and I said, how's everybody doing? And they were like, fine, 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 fine. And I was like, okay, really? Are you really fine? Like, are you really fine and you're pretending to be fine? Or are you, truly at your core fine? Or are you filled with anxiety, worry, and fear? And then, your outer external expression is I'm fine, because that's what we do in the world. People ask us how we are and we say we're fine. So it's an interesting thing to look at. We may be perfectly fine in that moment, and we also may be, joyous and excited and happy, and at the same time struggling and grieving and in pain. And that is the nature of duality. That is how we hold paradox. That is being human. What I really want to, pause here today with is, how are you really feeling? How is this end of year sort of showing up for you? How does your body feel? What's going on for you? Is there a sense of overwhelm? Is there too much happening at once? Can you not catch up to yourself? And if that is the case, it is even more important for you to pause and take a moment, because that moment will allow you to settle in, to connect to yourself, and then hopefully to revitalize you enough to give you the space to move on and, live your life in a way that does not feel like you are a ball of anxiety. So, what are the steps that you can take now in this moment as we head towards the end of the year that are going to support you and nourish you? In this country, we love this concept and this idea of New Year's resolutions, this like way to start anew. And really, we can do that any day of the year. It doesn't take a new year. It doesn't take any particular thing. It just takes you making a choice. And the reality is that, New Year is a marker. And, it's easy, right? But the problem with making New Year's resolutions is we often make a New Year's resolution on January 1st. And then by sometime in the middle of February, maybe around Valentine's Day, like it's gone, it's out the window, you're done. Maybe you went gung-ho full on for that first, month and a half, and then you just fizzled out. So I'm not really in the habit of making New Year's resolutions. I find them to be mildly daunting. And I feel like I'm always making some sort of resolution to myself on how to improve and how to be better and how to, be more myself. So I invite you in the moment to peer into your own heart. And then what intentions do you want to set? What can you do for yourself today that will create the space of well-being and vibrant, ecstatic health and joy in your life? What does that mean? How do we tap into that? And really, when we take certain actions, we do create certain consequences. There is a reason we do certain things. We don't just eat well because, we're supposed to. We eat well because optimally and in a perfect world, when we eat really well, we feel better. And so, when we feel better, then we want to keep eating well, because then, it feeds itself and you're like, oh, I have more energy. I feel better. I feel lighter. Energetically, I feel less depressed. I feel more connected to myself. I can feel my own experience. I can feel, sensation in a different way. And so what really happens when we start, I'm, focusing here on eating well, but when we do something like we eat well, or we eat in alignment with what our body needs and with the nourishment we need, then we start to clear out the channels of the body. We start to release our toxicity, and we start to literally open up. And that light that we hold inside starts to expand. We can literally feel more of ourselves. We connect more to who we are. And so, whether it's related to taking action, or, deciding that you want to show up in the world in a slightly different way, whatever that, concept or intention is that you want to sort of take on for the new year, why wait? Can you start now? Can you pause and give yourself a moment to settle in? And the reality is we can do all the right things. We can take all the right actions, and we can do, take all the perfect steps, because let's face it, the perfect steps are different for each person. And, things still go awry. Things still don't go exactly the way we want them to. But hopefully the continuity and the way we take care of ourselves and that ritual creates some ease, and then hopefully makes everything else, a little bit easier. It doesn't make life easy, but it creates ease. So let's sit. So feel your sitting bones root. Feel that exhale move down. Feel the body settle. And as your sitting bones root, maybe close your eyes. If it doesn't feel good to close your eyes, as always, feel free to keep them open. And draw your awareness to the pulsation of your breath, to that rise and fall of the breath. And allow the breath to draw you inward. And just feel your skin. Feel the sensation of the air on your skin. Feel your body in space. Feel into your belly, your digestion. Notice what's happening there. You can scan the body from the crown of your head down, just to start to feel into where you are holding energy, maybe where you're gripping, maybe where certain parts of the body feel maybe hollowed out, maybe where other parts of the body feel dense. And just breathing in to feel the sensation. Let the breath fill you out. And then take a big breath into the back body so that you start to lean back into yourself. You connect. You draw back in. And start to notice how much you are being pulled out. I know for me personally, I am definitely being pulled out of my routine. I'm being pulled out of focus because there's all this other stuff to handle, all this other stuff to do. And so I want you to notice that. Can you bring yourself back into connection? Can you feel into the space on the inside? So we draw into those inner workings. And here, when you sit with yourself, when you sit in your own presence, when you sit with your own heart, every breath is an opportunity to deepen this conversation and to ask ourselves, the hard questions. What do you want? And then what are you willing to do for it? And we can want a lot of things, right? But that second part of that question, what are you willing to do for it? How are you willing to take action? How are you willing to step in? Are you willing to take 5 minutes and pause and breathe and reconnect to yourself? Because that process and that action, it will settle your nervous system. It will give you that moment. Will it take care of, all of the things that you need to get done? No. But it might create a little more peace and a little more ease as you do all of that other stuff. And so breathing in, feeling in. And when you draw into those questions, when you draw into asking yourself, what do you want and what are you willing to do for it? How are you going to set intention based on those questions? How are you going to line yourself up? How are you going to ritualize your life? How do our actions affect the outcome? So we bring our future self to the conversation. What do you want to create? And then we back out of it. If we want to create this, what are the steps we need to take to create that? And sometimes we just want to hold what that is that we want to create, and then let that energy kind of, come in gently. You might not have the complete answer in the moment. You might not know exactly what you want in this moment, and that's okay. Maybe you know how you want to feel. Maybe you know how you want to present yourself in the world. Maybe you know how you want to show up. And then can we show up in a way that's authentic? So not because we sort of pasted it on, oh, I'm going to be joyful, so that's what I'm going to show the world. Like, no, because if you're not, then you're not being authentic. So how do you create that from the inside? How do you literally draw inward to support yourself, to support your own joy, to support your own heart? We have everything we need to create our life here in our bodies, in our hearts, in our minds. How can we support ourselves? How can we draw in to not only feel this internal support, but feel our own power, feel our potency, and then move from this place of connection, move from this place of really tapping into this resource you're holding. Take a few really deep inhales. And maybe make the exhale just a little bit longer than the inhale. That long exhale tends to soften the nervous system, draws you back into connection. Draw your hands into prayer in front of your heart. So honoring anything that came, any information that revealed itself to you, honoring the truth of your own wisdom and your own heart. And then just gently bowing your head to your heart and to your body, to your mind, to everything that you hold here. Namaste. So it's a good question to ask yourself and maybe even journal about a little bit to see what comes up, because sometimes the answers don't come right away in meditation. Sometimes they do. Sometimes they'll come tomorrow or the next day or the next day. And sometimes they come out via the writing, because sometimes things come out that you don't even realize are there. So I invite you to take on that practice. I am not going to do the Ayurveda 101 this Friday because I feel like everyone is already so overwhelmed, and I'm going to wait until the beginning of January. So we will do an Ayurveda 101, Own Your Body, beginning of January via video conference. If that's interesting, also for those of you who are actually in Dallas and in Spring Park, I'm going to be starting a local class here in Spring Park, and I will give you more details on that. All right, have a great day, and I will be back hopefully Friday. Okay, thanks everybody. See you soon. Bye.